Aarti Sharma pressed her forehead to the airplane window, watching Delhi shrink into a blur of lights. For the first time in her life, she was leaving India alone. At 24, she told herself she was chasing independence, a chance to escape the narrow lanes of her hometown and the endless questions about marriage and duty. She had convinced her parents this was a respectable hotel position in Bangkok, a stepping stone to something bigger. Her mother's tearful hug at the airport clung to her still. "Stay safe, Beti, call us every day," her mother had whispered, while her father stood silent, pride and unease warring in his eyes. Aarti had smiled brightly, hiding the truth she couldn't bear to reveal, that her opportunity had not come from a formal agency, but from a stranger she had met online. The recruiter's messages had been persuasive. Better pay, free lodging, a job where you'll be treated like family. The words had filled the hollow in her chest, the one carved by years of feeling overlooked. When the ticket arrived, she hadn't paused. She wanted to prove she could build her own life. Bangkok greeted her with neon lights and humid air. The taxi driver chattered in broken English as they wove through crowded streets where scooters zipped like insects and markets spilled onto pavements. Aarti leaned back, clutching her single suitcase, a nervous thrill racing through her. The city looked alive, dangerous, irresistible. Her new contact, a woman named Marissa, met her at the apartment entrance. Elegant, perfumed, with a smile that felt rehearsed, she extended a hand. "Welcome, Aarti. Long trip?" "Yes, but I'm fine," Aarti replied, forcing confidence into her tone. "You'll rest here tonight. Tomorrow, training begins." The room Marissa led her to was small but clean. A single bed, a barred window, a desk with a flickering lamp. Not quite the hotel she had imagined, but exhaustion dulled her questions. She lay awake that night, listening to the muffled sounds of traffic outside, her chest tight with excitement and unease. Days passed quickly. Bangkok dazzled her with its glittering malls, crowded temples, and endless street food stalls. Marissa accompanied her everywhere, explaining she should adjust first before work. Aarti tried to believe it. She sent cheerful voice notes home, telling her parents about the city, about the food, about her dreams. She left out the part about her passport being taken for safekeeping, or that she was rarely allowed out alone. One evening, standing on the apartment balcony, she caught sight of another young woman in the corridor. Her eyes lowered, shoulders hunched. Their glance met for an instant before the girl disappeared behind a door. Something cold passed through Aarti's veins. She turned back to the glittering skyline, telling herself not to think too much. "It's just the beginning," she whispered, clutching the railing. But in the pit of her stomach, doubt was already stirring. As the night deepened, the locked door behind her seemed louder than the hum of the city, and in the shadows of the corridor, the figure of the other girl lingered in her mind, a silent reminder that freedom might not be as close as she believed. Morning light streamed through thin curtains, but the door remained locked from the outside. Aarti sat on the bed, waiting for Marissa's knock. The first day she had laughed off the locked door, assuming it was for safety, but by the third day it had begun to gnaw at her. Marissa arrived carrying a tray of food. "Eat quickly, we'll talk later," she said smoothly, placing it on the desk.
"When do I start at the hotel?" Aarti asked, her voice cautious.
"Soon. First training. You must learn how things work here." Training meant hours of sitting with a stack of papers in a language she could not read, or watching Marissa's phone buzz constantly while she scribbled notes in a black folder. Aarti asked questions, but the answers were vague. The longer she stayed inside, the smaller the room felt. Her passport and documents, taken on the first night, had not been returned. Marissa brushed aside her concerns with a smile. "Safe with me. You don't want to lose them, do you?" Aarti had nodded, though unease coiled in her stomach. At night she pressed her ear to the door. Faint voices floated through the corridor, women speaking in hurried whispers, men's footsteps echoing like warnings. Once she heard crying. She wanted to knock, to ask, but fear kept her frozen. On the 7th day, Marissa announced, "You'll meet guests soon." "Guests?" Aarti repeated, confused. "Don't worry, be polite, be pretty, and you'll be rewarded." The words chilled her. This wasn't hotel training. She tried to protest, but Maurice's tone sharpened. "You came here for money, yes? Then don't waste my time. Do as told." The mask of kindness had slipped. Aarti realized she wasn't a worker waiting for employment. She was property, stored in a room she could not leave. That evening, footsteps halted outside her door. A metallic rattle followed, then silence. Aarti's pulse thudded in her ears. She held her breath until the sound faded. When she finally lay down, sleep came in broken fragments filled with images of locked gates and faceless figures. The next morning she saw the girl from the corridor again. Their eyes met longer this time. The girl's lips parted slightly, as if she wanted to speak, but she glanced nervously at Marisa, standing nearby, and quickly turned away. Aarti felt a sting of recognition. Fear mirrored fear. "Who is she?" Aarti whispered when they were alone. "No one you need to know," Marisa replied coldly. By the second week, Aarti stopped pretending. The bounty felt less like freedom and more like a cage, with bars invisible but unbreakable. She rehearsed in her head what she would say if she ever called home. "I'm not safe. Please help me." But whenever she held Marisa's borrowed phone, she smiled and spoke only of food, of temples, of the bustling city. She couldn't bring herself to break her parents' trust. One night she woke to the sound of someone pounding on a door down the hall. A man's angry voice shouted words she didn't understand. Then silence, heavy, final. Her chest constricted as she pulled the blanket over her head, trembling. The room she thought was temporary now felt like a trap, tightening with every passing day. And when Marisa entered the next morning, her eyes sharper than before, Aarti knew she had only two choices: obey or disappear. Aarti waited until Marisa's footsteps faded before stepping into the narrow corridor. The building was hushed, the air heavy with the faint scent of smoke and perfume. For days she had caught glimpses of the other girl, dark hair, restless eyes, but never a chance to speak. Tonight the silence felt like an opening. The girl was leaning against a wall near the stairwell, head lowered. Aarti hesitated, then whispered, "Hello." The girl looked up quickly, fear flashing before recognition softened her face. "You're new," she murmured. Her voice was rough, barely above a breath. "Yes, I'm Aarti." The girl's lips tightened. "Lena." She scanned the corridor nervously, then leaned closer. "You should know, this isn't a hotel job." Aarti's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" Lena's sleeve slipped, revealing faint bruises on her arm. She pulled it back quickly. "They brought me the same way. Promises, contracts, lies. There's no hotel, there's no choice. Only men." The words fell like stones. Aarti shook her head, whispering, "No, there must be some mistake." Lena's eyes glistened, empty of hope. "I thought so too. 50 days I've been here, every door locked, every call monitored. They'll break you if you resist." A heavy silence filled the corridor. Aarti's pulse hammered in her throat. She wanted to argue, to cling to the illusion of freedom, but the memory of Marisa's cold tone and the sound of pounding on doors silenced her. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked finally. Lena's voice cracked. "Because once, someone warned me. I didn't listen. Maybe you still can." Footsteps echoed from the stairwell. Lena's face drained of color. She stepped back, whispering fast, "Don't trust anyone who promises freedom. They always want something first." The corridor door opened, spilling light across the floor. Marisa appeared, her eyes sweeping the hallway like a blade. "What are you doing out here?" Aarti forced a smile. "Just stretching my legs." "Go back. Now." Aarti obeyed, her body rigid, but the words clung to her like a shadow. No hotel, no choice, only men. Inside her room she sat against the wall, trembling. She thought of her parents, of her brother, of the lies she told to keep them calm. She imagined their pride when she left, believing she was building a life. Shame and fear tangled in her chest. Through the thin walls, muffled cries rose and fell, then silence again. Aarti pressed her palms over her ears, but Lena's warning echoed louder than anything else. That night she dreamed of an open door and sunlight streaming in, but when she woke, the lock gleamed cold against the wood. And when morning came, Marisa introduced her to a man waiting in the living room, a man whose smile promised kindness, but whose eyes watched her like prey. The man sat casually on the sofa, one leg crossed over the other, as if he owned the room. His blonde hair caught the light, his shirt unbuttoned, just enough to show confidence, without effort. When Aarti entered, Marisa gestured toward him with unusual respect. "This is Daniel," she said. "He is important. Be polite." Daniel's smile was warm, practiced. "So you're the new girl," he said in smooth English. "India, yes." Aarti nodded, her throat dry. "Beautiful country. Beautiful women. Sit, don't be shy." She perched on the edge of the chair opposite him. His eyes never left her face. Unlike the men she had imagined. Drunk, aggressive. He was calm, almost gentle. It disarmed her. Marisa retreated to the kitchen, leaving them alone. The silence stretched. Daniel leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I know this isn't what you expected," he said softly. Aarti's chest tightened. "What do you mean?" He chuckled, as if she were a child asking a simple question. "This place. The rules. It's hard at first. But it doesn't have to be so bad." Her instinct screamed not to trust him, yet his tone pulled her in. "I came here for a job," she whispered. "And you will have one," Daniel replied. "But not the kind you imagined. Still, you want freedom, don't you? Money. A chance at a new life. I can help with that." The word freedom hung in the air like a key dangling just out of reach. He opened a pack of cigarettes and offered her one. She shook her head. "Good," he said. "Keep your lungs clean. You'll need your strength." He lit his own, the smoke curling between them. "Listen, Aarti. Marisa follows orders. The people upstairs, they don't care about you. But me, I notice things. I can make life easier for you. Safer." Her eyes narrowed. "Why would you help me?" "Because I like you," he said simply, tapping ash into a tray. "You remind me of someone I once knew. And because loyalty matters. If you trust me, if you listen, I can give you privileges. Maybe even your passport back." Her breath caught. Passport. The word she had almost forgotten how to hope for. From the kitchen, Marisa's voice called, "Time's up." Daniel leaned closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. "Think about what I said. Don't waste your energy fighting. You'll only hurt yourself. But if you stand with me, doors can open." That night, Aarti couldn't sleep. His words played over and over in her mind, weaving between Lena's warning and her own desperate longing to escape. Was Daniel different, or just another layer of the trap? Over the next days, he returned often. Sometimes he brought food from outside, noodles, fruit, coffee. Sometimes he spoke of Europe, of beaches, of women who made it out because they had someone protecting them. Each time his voice dipped lower, pulling her closer into a circle where kindness and control blurred. One evening, after handing her a small chocolate bar, he looked directly into her eyes. "You see, I keep my promises," he said. "Stay close to me, and one day soon you'll walk out of here free." For the first time in weeks, Aarti allowed herself to imagine sunlight on her face without bars in the way. But in her chest, fear lingered. Freedom offered by a man like Daniel came with a price she had yet to understand. And when he placed his hand lightly on her wrist, holding it there just a second too long, she realized the price might already be chosen for her. The borrowed phone felt heavy in Aarti's hands. Daniel had placed it there with a casual shrug. 10 minutes, he said. "Make it quick." Her heart pounded as she dialed the familiar number. It rang twice before her younger brother picked up. "Didi? Finally. Where have you been? Ma keeps asking." Hearing his voice cracked something inside her. She pressed her forehead to the wall, swallowing tears. "I'm fine," she said quickly. "The job is busy. Bangkok is different." "You sound tired," he replied. "Are they treating you well?" Her lips trembled. She wanted to scream the truth, to tell him about the locked doors, Marisa's cold eyes, Daniel's careful grip around her life. But Daniel leaned in the doorway, watching, a cigarette glowing between his fingers. "I just miss you," she whispered. "Take care of Ma and Papa. Tell them I'm happy." Her brother hesitated. "Happy? You don't sound." In the background, Daniel's voice cut sharp. Enough now. Her brother's alarmed voice echoed through the line. Who was that? Aarti. The call ended abruptly. The phone was gone from her hand, plucked away before she could answer. She stood frozen, staring at Daniel. He exhaled smoke slowly, eyes narrowed. You almost ruined everything, he said softly. Be careful with your words. Aarti bit down on her sob, nodding. The silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of traffic outside. Daniel's expression softened, but it felt like a mask slipping back into place. I give you chances others don't, he murmured. Don't waste them. When he left, she sank onto the bed, clutching her knees to her chest. Her brother's voice lingered in her ears, fretted with suspicion and fear. She knew he had sensed the truth. But across oceans, what could he do? That night, she stared at the ceiling, every shadow a threat. Her parents would wonder why she called so little, why her voice cracked at odd moments. They would believe her lies, because they wanted to. And when her name appeared in the news, they would remember this call, her silence, her broken tone, and understand too late. Through the wall, faint sobs carried from another room. She pressed her hand over her heart, as if holding it in place. 50 days had blurred into a fog of waiting, hoping, obeying, and now the fog felt like it was closing in, suffocating. The door locked behind her that night with a metallic finality. She lay in the dark, knowing she had just spoken to her family for the last time. The headline arrived before dawn in Delhi. Young Indian woman found dead in Bangkok apartment under mysterious circumstances. Aarti's father sat at the kitchen table, glasses slipping down his nose, the paper trembling in his hands. Her mother collapsed against the counter, her wails filling the house, until neighbors gathered outside. Her brother, numb, refreshed his phone again and again, searching for another article, another explanation, anything that might contradict the words staring back at him. The reports were brief, inconsistent. Some said she had taken her own life. Others hinted at foul play. The only certainty was that she had been found in her rented room, alone, 55 days after leaving home. The passport still missing, the bruises on her arms unexplained. In Bangkok, police tape stretched across the narrow doorway of the apartment building. Curious neighbors whispered, craning their necks, as officers carried out a black body bag. Marisa stood at the end of the hall, face expressionless, arms folded. Daniel lingered in the shadows, lighting a cigarette with steady hands. His gaze followed the stretcher as if watching a chapter close. The official statement came quickly. No signs of forced entry. Suicide suspected, case under review. The words fell like stones, closing the door before questions could be asked. But questions burned in Delhi. Aarti's brother replayed the last call in his mind, her fragile voice, the muffled command in the background. He remembered the way she had said, "I'm happy," while sounding anything but. He wanted to shout it to the world. She was not safe, she was not free, someone had silenced her. Her parents visited officials, begging for answers. They were told investigations were complicated, that jurisdiction lay across borders. Forms were filled, promises made, but days slipped by without clarity. In Bangkok, whispers circulated among the women who still lived in that building. Some said Aarti had resisted too much, others that Daniel had grown tired of her. A few swore they heard a struggle that final night, but none dared to speak aloud. Silence was survival. A journalist from Delhi picked up the story. She pieced together fragments: Aarti's recruitment through social media, her sudden disappearance from public view, the vague promises made by strangers. The article framed Aarti not as a victim of her own hand, but of a wider system that thrived on desperation and silence. Still, the official narrative overshadowed it. At home, Aarti's mother lit incense before her photograph, whispering prayers between tears. Her father, once proud of her independence, now carried the unbearable weight of regret. "We should never have let her go," he murmured again and again. Her brother stared at the framed picture on the wall, remembering her laugh, her stubbornness, the Thay she had promised she'd call every day. He also remembered the faint pause on the phone, the sound of another man's voice cutting through her words, and he knew with a certainty deeper than grief that she had tried to tell him. The truth of Aarti's final days remained buried in that locked apartment. The bruises were explained away, the missing passport unmentioned, the voices of the women silenced. On paper, it was a tragedy with no suspect. In reality, it was a crime swallowed by walls, borders, and lies. Weeks later, the apartment door was scrubbed clean. Another girl moved in, and life resumed as if nothing had happened. But Lena, walking the corridor at night, would sometimes pause outside that room. She pressed her palm against the wall, whispering softly into the silence, "I told you not to trust them. I'm sorry." And somewhere in Delhi, her brother stared at the flicker of a candle beside her photograph, vowing silently that one day, somehow, her story would be told the way it was meant to be. Not as a headline, not as a suicide, but as a truth stolen too soon. Because Aarti Sharma had left India with hope in her heart. 55 days later, all that remained was her name in the news, and the unanswered echo of what really happened behind that locked door.